Up we go. Let's pop the hood. That might let a little more light in there too. Sway bar kit came in for the old 62 C10 project. Let's get it on the lift over here and take a look at that thing. Supposedly a bolt-in for a 62 C10 pickup. Man, they're serious about this not coming open. The heck? Uh-oh, feel something in here. Don't throw that away. Nothing? Oh, there's something. Put your hands on the staples. Oh, doggy. Look at that thing. Yeah, we might have to autocross this truck. Just kidding. Make sure there's nothing else in here without slicing our hands open anymore on the staples. A lot of staples. Look at that. That thing's crazy. It's a solid block of steel. Bushings and end links, hardware, all the cool stuff. More hardware and instructions. We're actually going to read these. We're going to mess with this. Stay tuned. My name's Jimmy. We're making it work. If you're new here and you haven't seen my videos before, my specialty is a day in the shop. I'm a professional auto mechanic, master mechanic for 40 some odd years. Can't even count anymore. There's been so many. This video, we're going to do 62 C10 front sway bar kit from POL, performanceonline.com. They make a kit for 63 to 66. I'm going to adapt it into my 62. They say it can't be done. You want to see? Stay tuned. I've taken the hardware out of the box. Of course, it comes with the sway bar, end links, the brackets to mount to your frame, control arms I mean, the brackets to mount to your frame on the sway bar here, and the brackets to mount to your control arm, and the little links. There's no spacers because you want them pretty short to clear your steering linkage and everything. Comes with all the hardware you'll need. I got my tools laid out. Should be a pretty simple job. It's going to be more about measuring and double measuring and triple measuring everything to make sure you don't have to drill holes and oblong holes or weld holes, close back up, that kind of thing. So we should just need the drill bits, measuring tape or ruler of some kind. I'm using what they call soapstone. If you do any kind of metal work, you're probably familiar with these. You can mark this up pretty good. You can get a good idea on rusty, dirty metal, where to cut, so you don't have to clean and prep everything ahead of time. I've got a center punch to get, whoop, I'll let that fire engine go by. Get about 6 fire engines a day past here. Ambulances actually for all the accidents and crazy driving. Got an automatic center punch. A viewer was nice enough to send me from Starrett, number 18-C. You push this in and it spring loads and all of a sudden pop, and it gives you a nice little pinhole to start your drill bit so your drill bit doesn't try to wander around. Not a necessity, but it makes it a little easier. Got a set of standard sockets, got a 3/8 ratchet or 3/8. I have to have an electric impact since I'm a professional mechanic. I have some power tools, not a necessity. Makes it a little quicker though. And a couple of wrenches, 9/16 and 1/2 inch should cover all the hardware involved in this repair, in this installation. So let's get to it. This little hole step drill, super handy, not a necessity. Got it at Harbor Freight, 17 bucks. This one and the larger one came as a pair for $17. I think it's Klein or Quinn in Harbor Freight. Quinn, I believe. So I've got the sway bar mocked up. You can kind of see what we're doing here. It's a little easier on the side without a tire. So you can kind of see what we're doing. I've got to, I rolled my clamps around for the steering sleeves so that they wouldn't interfere. When I tighten this, it'll get a little shorter as well. And this bracket, I'm going to move as low as I can to bring the sway bar further down. I've got pole jacks holding everything up. If you don't have pole jacks, you're going to have a friend help you out. Maybe if you're going to do it on the ground in the garage, you're going to put a couple jack stands, or obviously jack stands under the truck to make it easier to work underneath. And then maybe some floor jacks or a jack stand and floor jack, whatever you need to hold it up and kind of get everything in place kind of where it goes. You want to center these brackets on the arms very well. These main brackets, they're not as critical. Obviously you want them, they got to be centered with the frame rail, and then the sway bar is going to be trapped inside them. And the end links keep the sway bar from moving too much. If it does end up moving on you after you've road tested the truck, you know, once installation's finalized, you're going to want to take it for a good drive, see how it handles, right? Well, then the first thing you should do is come back, check the sway bar to see if it moved. You can get strap clamps to attach. You could use a hose clamp, although I don't think it would look very good. They make clamps for the purpose of keeping the sway bar from sliding left to right. You'd put one on the outside here and one on the outside here, or you can put them both on the inside so they're hidden to stop the sway bar from going side to side. If you use a hose clamp, it could tear up your rubber bushings pretty bad. So you'll probably want something that's a little thicker and a little more attractive than a worm clamp, right? So let's get started. I'm going to center punch some holes, and at least if I get one hole, what I'm going to do is go left to right, right to left, front to back, side to side, in and out, up and down. And then when I push this up, it gives me a nice little mark. So I get my 2 marks on these. I have a good idea where this block's going to go. I can take all this out of my way. I've located my brackets on the arms where I want them. Put a soapstone line on each side of the bracket so I know where it goes left to right. I can put it up and down wherever I want, as long as both sides match. You definitely don't want to put twist in the bar right off the bat. It's going to always have a little twist based on the driver's weight and those kinds of things. And the 6062 have a torsion bar suspension, which a lot of people go out of their way to remove them all, but I find the truck rides really well, except for the left to right boat kind of feeling. That's what the sway bar is for. Let me pull this out of the way now. We'll start drilling some holes and get this thing in. Show you what that looks like. Now I've got my chalk line, so I know the larger holes for the sway bar, smaller holes for the bolt. So I have a little leeway, of course. Those links can let you adjust it as you need. But I made the hole level with this hole. This bracket's about as far as I'm comfortable pushing it towards the curved area of the arm. I could put it a little higher, but I'm not wanting everything to be touching my steering linkage if I can avoid it. I've already mocked it up and turned the steering left to right, and that's how I knew I needed to turn my clamps. Everything clears, but it's close. I mean, you have probably 3/8 of an inch. This is a full drop. With everything at ride height, the sway bar and the linkage and everything moves together. So if you have 3/8, half an inch of clearance, you're going to have 3/8 of an inch of clearance or more through suspension movement as well. So pretty important to check it though. You don't want to have things bind up going down the road when you find out. If you have a way to be under the vehicle, like a drive-on rack like I have, or a nice clean garage floor, you can lay under the truck and work the steering and have someone do it for you, or come in and out and check every half a turn or so of the wheel and make sure nothing's touching anywhere. Steering and brakes, 2 of the most important things you have to have going down the road. So that's where I punched that hole. Now I know on the other side, if I do the same thing, have the bracket about flush with the arm, I'll be in good shape. I can drill my holes. But I want it to be really close left to right, within about 1/8 inch or so. There's a bit of forgiveness, but if things are too far out of whack, then you end up with the truck would handle a little better to the left than it would to the right and that kind of thing. But we're not autocrossing this, but we are going to get it pretty close. Got my bracket centered in my soapstone lines and about as low as I'm comfortable with over here. And after I make this mark, I will check to make sure they're pretty close. I'm going to get my tape measure and measure both sides. So I've got 7/8 of an inch and 7/8 of an inch. Good. From the hole to there, assuming that's correct, 2 3/8. And I'm going to say that's 2 3/8 as well. So we're good. My frame holes, same thing. I got my 2 marks. You can see my frame has been kinked a little bit over here. It's from the steering box forward, so all it affects is the bumper. And everything's boxed from here back. So this is the only weak link in the frame. So I definitely am sad about it, but it's not a critical thing. I still have to get shorter bolts for my steering box too. Those are 1 inch too long, obviously. So I'm going to get bolts that are 1 inch shorter. Just haven't done it yet. We'll go ahead and drill these holes. I'm going to have to put some spacers in here to get that flat because it's back to the curve a little bit. I didn't want it that far forward, but I need my brackets to reach the sway bar. So what I can do is drill my holes, mount my brackets, do one more mock-up test before I drill these, and see if there's any room to sneak the sway bar mounts back a little bit towards the flatter part of the frame. So that part we can sort out. We got some leeway with that. But these little linkages, they don't have a lot of give. They're not very long. A lot of modern vehicles, those are almost twice as long. Some they are twice as long, but so I'm going to drill these first, and then we'll put it back up, see what it looks like. I always drill a pilot hole, and then I go slightly larger, and then my third drilled hole will be my final size. Makes your drill bits live a lot longer. I also use a little bit of cutting fluid. Some call it machinist fluid, but it protects the cutting surfaces a little bit and still lets you drill. It's like magic. I don't know how it works. Don't ask me. I don't know the chemistry. What I was going to do too is watch for deflection after these are all bolted, and have someone open the door and rock the vehicle and see when the sway bar tries to work, does that bracket flex? If it does, I'm going to have to put some tack welds underneath, just because I pushed that edge to the curve a little bit, trying to get it as low as possible. I'll finish drilling these out. We'll come back bolting them up. The bracket over here, and it comes with some decent hardware, lock nuts, things like that. I had to get some washers though. It didn't come with those. Makes me a little sad, but luckily I got washers around. If you're doing this kit, you're gonna probably want to put some flat washers. Don't use lock washers. The lock nuts do what they would do, and lock washers, they can give you trouble in some applications. The lock washer wants to spread and actually cause things to loosen up, oddly enough. That's why you don't see a lot of it anymore nowadays. You see more, it's usually Loctite instead of lock washers. So let me get this other bracket off the sway bar. We'll get this side bolted on. I'm not saying lock washers don't work at all and they're never used. I'm just saying not used as much, depends on the application. Something going on with the threads on this nut or bolt, I guess. Does not. Should be one of the simplest parts of the job. Come on, little bolt. There you go. All right, once I asked it nicely, it went. Now I can get the sway bar back up in here, mocked up one last time. Now that I know these aren't going to be flopping around on me, I'll hook the links up again, loosely, and I'll be able to see how much I can get away with pulling that sway bar forward. I do want to get my spacers in there because they'll be a factor in the problem solving as well. I'm already forward about a ½ inch from where I was earlier, just to see if I'll be able to pull that off. I'm not pinching them hard, I'm just keeping it from falling. Bolt, bushings, washers, sway bar. I'm not going to put the, oh, that's terrible news. How am I going to pick that up? There it is, didn't go too far. So, put that bushing on there. My main concern too here is there is not a lot of room, and the bolt barely reaches the threads without the washer, which is a common problem when you do sway bar links. They don't like to make the bolt any longer than it has to be, probably because of the steering linkage potential interference from that. So, oh, I went down quite a bit from where I was initially, so let's get this side on. We'll give that sway bar a tug forward. The bushings always face the metal, the washers go in between. Yeah, I was kind of afraid of that. The sway bar links are so short, they want to be locked in. They don't want to let me move it back any further. So we're gonna have to put it on the curve and come up with something for that. Maybe a little bit of a spacer. It's gonna also, the frame actually curves up a little bit too. You can see what I'm talking about right here. It's probably not that big of a deal. I probably could put my bolt and nut in and be done, but the front one's gonna be definitely tight, but I want the back one tight too. Obviously, I mean, it'll be tight as far as the block and the bolt and the hardware goes, but I don't know if that space is gonna be a problem or not down the road. All right, we're gonna mount it where we initially marked our holes, and then we'll see how much of a problem that curve is. I got my holes all drilled, got everything kind of test fitted here. It's kind of weird drilling on an angle, so you have to compensate where my mark wasn't quite right. So I had to go up a size on a drill bit so the bolt's a little looser to let me get that block on, but we made it work. That's basically what I'm saying. I'm just gonna use this to help me hold everything in place a little bit. Now the sway bar mount itself is slotted, so that won't be any problem, I don't think. We'll see. Wanting to fight me a little bit. It's pretty tight on the sway bar too. I want to move it over a little, and it's going to wrestle with me. Now keep in mind too, when you're drilling this stuff upside down, definitely got to wear some eye protection. I had metal all over my arms and my shirt, and I'm standing on a lift. So if you're doing this like on a garage floor, you got to be really careful with your eyes. Even after you're done drilling and you get up and you got to shake all that metal off you and stuff, so you gotta be extra careful. I'd hate to see somebody get hurt. Sometimes you're in a rush, and I'm bad about it myself. Practice what you preach. You get in a rush and you go, yeah, I don't need safety goggles, I'll close my eyes. But then you don't notice a piece of metal on your eyelid that falls in your eye when you open them, you know, so sometimes stuff's gonna happen, so take the precautions you can. You don't have to be terrified, but take the precautions you can, whatever makes you feel comfortable. That tells me, and I need my custom Knipex 62 sway bar installation pliers. That's all. Let's get some tools. I don't want to hurt these threads, but I'll see just how much coercion it might take, and then I'll decide whether I need to make some adjustments or not. I can get an electric ratchet, but I don't feel like walking back to my toolbox. When I was test fitting everything, I was really happy to fit in that steel block, because these holes are slotted. I thought they'd be no problem, but apparently they're a problem. Partially because everything's kind of crooked, I suppose. The frame's a little tweaked here and there. All right, I think we're started. Same thing over here. Grab my 9/16. Now this one is the frame box is kind of in the way. So I just want to get it through the hole, get a washer nut on top before I get too crazy. Well, I'm gonna have to get some more metal out of the way. I already went in here with my die grinder and cut some of that away, thinking that this lock washer would fit underneath it easily, but it really doesn't. All right. Let's do a little bit more hogging out of that. I'm using this, putting on my face shield, taking some of the metal off of this here. It bumps into that part right there. Let's see if I get my light on it. I gotta hog that out a little bit larger so a nut will fit instead of just a bolt. That should be a little better. Got the clearance in there for my nuts. That doesn't sound right. My nut fits after I took metal out of that inner bracket. I don't think the curve of the frame is going to be a big deal because of that giant steel spacer, which originally I thought was meant to go above the frame in between the, so to sandwich the frame in between the bracket and the block. But now I realize the block has to be in there to clear my steering box. But even if that wasn't in there, it has to be in there to clear the bracket that holds the bumper. So they must want you to put it underneath to space it down. And it still helps make the frame more rigid no matter where it's at. Because if you had a sheet metal clamp and the stamped 1/8" steel frame, without it, it would be less rigid. Yeah, I really like, this frame's definitely tweaked out a little. It's tweaking my bracket. It's tweaking on my bracket a little bit. We'll have to, I might take all this stuff off here and try to straighten that frame a little bit, or this is the only thing wrong with the truck is the front of this frame on the left side. They bounced off something and changed the bumper, I'm thinking. Yeah, it's definitely tweaking this bracket out a little bit. You know, I wonder if I could even take a big pair of, let me see something. Let's see if I can get a tool. I can use my adjustable crescent wrench and put that on here and see if I can tweak this frame nose just a little bit. Let's see, you guys hopefully aren't too far away. The passenger side's nice and flat. This side is not nice and flat. Let's just put it that way. As close to that bracket as I can. Oh wait, something's happening. It's kind of tweaking it, and right where this plate is, it's not, because I can't get leverage there. I'm gonna have to unbolt this sway bar mount. I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna unbolt the sway bar mount, tweak that bottom of that frame rail a little bit. I didn't realize it would bend that easy. That was nothing. I'm gonna do that quick and come back. All right, way better. Not perfect, but way better. I'll take it. A little bit of hammering and straightening. I think that's where it's supposed to be. That's pretty good. It's 90% better. I did a little hammering and dollying in the frame rail. Took out a little bit of this kink here and got the bottom of the rail straighter. Not perfect. You can see there's still about a few degrees, but it was about 20 degrees crooked before squishing the heck out of the urethane bushings. That sway bar's in. I just got to tighten up this bracket and these end links. And we are in business and got a autocross machine. Well, maybe that's not accurate. At the very least, we'll have us a truck that's really good in the parking lot. We'll tighten the links last. I'm intentionally using a 3/8 gun or ratchet rather than a 1/2 inch. You don't want to snap these bolts there. Even though there are grade 8 bolts, you still don't want to use a big giant 1/2 inch impact. Overdo it, you stretch the bolts, make them weak. Nobody likes weak bolts because they will snap. These sway bars aren't taking that much load. It's hard to wrap your brain around, but when you only have 3 or 4 inches of suspension travel and you only have an inch or two of deflection, it feels like a lot in the cab because your head's near the roof of the vehicle, and if the body rolls an inch, your head's moving about 3 inches or so because you're further up, right? So the sway bar just keeps it to a minimum. It still flexes and lets everything move, just lessens it. And the heavier the sway bar is, the more it reduces the body roll, but the stiffer it'll ride. Because if you go too crazy, then it doesn't want to let the wheels work independently. Normally when this wheel pulls up, it makes it want to pull the other one up. So they work together, right? And the stiffer it is, the less the body rolls and the less this wheel wants to move without the other one. So there's always a compromise. Now, I don't want to over crush these, but I think about a 1/4 inch of thread showing will be good. I'm waiting on a couple things to finish my steering box replacement. They had a hokey bracket on there that was pretty nasty looking, and the box didn't feel like it worked right. So I went ahead and swapped it out to a C10 steering box from a 76. I'm still working on this. This video is not complete yet because I'm waiting on fittings to put my metric hoses on. Rather than replacing the hoses, I figured I'd just get the adapters, and then that way this will have adapters. You can use either hose you want. Anything will fit, right? This is all in. I already checked this to make sure nothing hits. Everything's good. We got this bracket pretty tight. It's all buttoned up. The only thing now is going to be to take this thing for a drive, see how it handles on the road with our new sway bar installed. Once that steering box is done with the fittings and I've got that steering ready to go, then we'll have a video where we're testing out the new steering and testing out the sway bar. That's basically it. If you want to know how to put a sway bar on your C10 if it doesn't have one, like I said too, this is made for 63 to 66. Mine's a 62. Supposedly it doesn't fit, but you see that it does now, right? You do have to be really careful with all your linkages. Make sure nothing's going to hit anywhere, and we'll be good to go. I've tested it, but test it on yours because they're all a little different. If you have this steering box at a different angle and your idler arm at a different angle, see, I made a bracket here to lower my idler arm with the steering box to try to keep all my steering linkage in the right place so that I get that minimum amount of bump steer. So if your truck's a little bit different, please, 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 please double and triple check all your linkage for clearances. Make sure everything's going to work out for you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe you'll torque the like button on your way out. And don't forget, I got an Amazon store with a lot of these tools I use in my Amazon store. You can check that. It really helps the channel a lot. They throw me a couple of nickels and quarters here and there if you buy something through that link. And I really appreciate that. It helps the channel and inspires me to make as much content as I possibly can. I do about 5 videos a week or more. A little extra footage. Remember, I drilled these holes on the curve and I was complaining about having a clearance. I was talking about having to clearance the inner part where the frame is boxed. Turns out when I got it on the drive-on rack, which is what you should always double check your work on, the arm, the sway bar was hitting the arm. You see that mark right there? I don't know if that shows up. A little mark on both sides. It was just touching. So I realized I could move this forward quite a bit now that it's at ride height. So I moved these blocks, re-drilled my holes. I'm going to paint this so it doesn't rust. And I did all that for nothing. It added probably half an hour for nothing. So if you guys are doing this on your truck, now you know. You don't want this too high. It's got to clear the knuckle. Even though the knuckle stops around here, I still don't want it any closer than it has to be. And I got a 1/2 inch longer bolt that came with this kit for 63 to 66. Got a 1/2 inch longer bolt because it was really hard to get the nut started with both washers in here. So I got longer bolts. I could put both washers in and add a little height. I wanted this eyelet to be kind of flat when the arm is flat. For some reason, it makes sense. So I wanted to update that. Kissimmee's getting to be a pretty ruckus town. So everything's all good. I got the correct length bolts in my steering box now. Got to paint these holes up so nothing rusts. Everything's good. So you guys know if you're doing this on your truck, just put it as far back on the flat, and you can mount it up there. Double check all your clearances, of course, no matter where you put it. And you don't have to be concerned with the curve like I thought. That's one of the things about hot rodding. It's like a never-ending process when you're customizing and hot rodding stuff. So, hope I see you in the next one, because you're awesome.